Alrighty, welcome back to another episode of A Warrior Spirit, where we let your inner warrior shine in their light. Today, I have the pleasure of having Kelly Owens. Kelly is an author, speaker, coach, mom, wife, and all around shining light. So I'm very honored to have you here today, and I appreciate your time. Thank you for joining me.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate being here.
So we are both in the Maxwell JMT program. That's where we kind of crossed paths and got to know you. You just wrote a book. Is this your first book?
That one was my first solo book. Yes.
Okay. Death by Cubicle. And I got to say, when you showed the name, I was like, yep, that everything I've ever been in any company I've ever been in. So I loved it. And I loved the read. I loved your aspect on it. When you were growing up, now you grew up in Indiana, Chicago area, with your siblings. Did you kind of have a entrepreneurial coaching spirit, or was it more gradual into that?
Actually, I think could be completely transparent, I would say more of a codependency spirit.
Okay.
Growing up. Because I grew up, my mother had a lot of mental health issues. And so, I became very, I guess, empathetic toward other people having struggles in life.
Mhm.
And so way back in the day, I originally had interest when I went to college was to go into psychology and become a therapist. As I went through college, of course, I ended up changing majors many times. So I ended up actually finally graduating with a degree in sociology. I had taken social work courses as well. And as soon as I graduated, I was hired by an addictions facility. I can't speak today. Sorry. Yeah,
Good
it
day
was
for a podcast.
yeah. It was, it was a treatment center. Yeah.
Okay.
And so I did that for quite a few years of doing addiction recovery.
So growing up in a world where, one parent is not fully present in the way that they could be, how did that affect you and your siblings? Did you kind of lean more into each other, or was your father more present, or, what kind of was your support system through that?
Actually, I think if anything, I learned to create my own inner strength and resilience actually coming out of it. Of course, my brother and sister, we are very supportive of each other. Even to this day, we're still very supportive of each other, but we just never really, I guess back then, never really gave much thought to the family dynamics. It was only as I grew up and studied about family dynamics that I could look back and recognize, oh, we were dysfunctional.
Yeah.
That to me, that was normal. I didn't know any
Right.
different.
Yeah, you don't know it when you're in the middle of it until
Right.
you're out of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So yeah, I think I developed an inner strength actually coming from it.
did you have like teacher or counselor or friend, somebody that you could actually kind of lean into, or was it all just your own inner?
I think it was a lot of more inner, because I've always been an extremely private person. And when I was much younger, I was less likely to be transparent and share what was going on with me.
Okay.
I'm way more transparent now because I'm at a place where like, whatever,
Yeah.
this is who I am, take me or leave me.
Yeah.
But back then when you're younger, I stressed more about those kind of things. So I wasn't likely to be transparent with people. So usually I was always that person. Like I said, there was that codependency element running through my younger years. So I was always that friend that everybody came to. I was the support system for everybody else because I was pretty well versed in practicing that role.
Yeah. So is your mom still alive?
She is.
And is she better, or?
No, not really.
Okay.
No.
Do you still have interaction or relationship with her at
Oh
all?
yeah. Yeah, definitely. We still do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, having gone through sociology and some psychology stuff, I imagine you tried to mend old fences.
Yeah. Well, what I realized once I got older was really more about acceptance,
Mm.
and that people and coming to learn the fact that others do the best they can with what they know how to do.
Mm-hmm.
And she did her best with how she knew how to do things. And, and when she was having better days, she was a phenomenal mom, very caring, very attentive. I mean, we weren't neglected. It's just that she was just wrapped up in a lot of her own mental health stuff and her emotions. But yeah, she was there for us, but probably could have done better had she known a different way to do things.
Yeah.
So I learned to accept that and actually make peace with it.
Nice. And I imagine growing up in that, it's made you more attentive to your own children, or your, as
Mhm.
trying to not follow in your, upbringing, right?
Yes, definitely, definitely. And in fact, actually, my daughter originally came from an orphanage setting, so she kind of had some challenges the first year of her life that continue that can affect her still at this time. And so learning about what her needs were and making sure to meet those needs and help her the best way I could, of course, consulting with professionals as well along the way. Yes, very much so. Trying to make sure that she had the best possible opportunities to overcome her initial time in the orphanage.
And she's now 22,
22. Yeah.
22,
Yeah.
graduate high school, college.
She just graduated college with
Nice.
a degree in computer science, gonna do like some cybersecurity stuff.
Oh, well, there's always work for that, for sure.
Yes. Yep. She's my little
Um,
genius.
it speaks to the the opportunities that you gave her to overcome those hurdles, and go into a field that is hard and but well versed, and so that speaks volumes to what you did as a parent. So are you still in addiction counseling?
No, actually, I really I got burned out from it. I've had many points in my professional career where I got burned out and, and left professions. And that was actually the first time that burnout hit me was after several years of working as an addictions counselor. I burned out. I had had enough and I needed to get away from it.
So what do you currently are you full-time coaching then?
No, not full-time coaching, but actually I'm full-time in automotive supply chain management.
Okay.
So that's what keeps the lights on and the mortgage paid and
Yeah.
health insurance, all those good things. But yes, on the side, I have coaching programs and but my area of specialty, I've I guess narrowed my focus because we are, like we were a John Maxwell team. I was doing a lot of leadership trainings. Actually the company I work for, their HR department would use me for leadership training, and I would go into other companies as well and businesses and help them with um, understanding like the DISC personality stuff,
Mhm.
all about leadership training. I would do those things, but as time has gone on and having burned out once more, probably the third or fourth time as a supply chain manager, it hit me that, hey, this is a reoccurring event in your life. Maybe somebody's trying to tell you something. And so that actually then ended up becoming a focus for me, not only getting into my own recovery, but then now focusing on helping others to recover from it.
Recover from the burnout.
From burnout, yes.
Yeah. Different recovery programs out there.
Right, yeah. But but my prior addictions recovery background and experience definitely played a part in how I viewed recovery from burnout. And there's a lot of people who talk about burnout. You see it all over LinkedIn. There's many books, but as I looked around trying to find a book for myself, I didn't find anything that I liked because I was at a place where I couldn't even finish reading a book. I couldn't even focus. So I decided to write the book that I needed. And so that's how that
That's
book came about, Death by
the
Cubicle.
death by cubicle.
Yeah.
Now, growing up in the environment you did, and then going into addictions, did you have addictions of your own that you needed to overcome, or?
Not really with alcohol and drugs. I would say though, as a teenager, there was a lot of alcohol abuse. I mean, I remember times being only 14 years old and being completely passed out by 5 p.m. over at a friend's house and waking up the next day with terrible hangovers. And it's kind of like I was only 14. So
Yeah.
I was well on probably a pathway to something, but luckily other people became influences in my life that started to steer me away from the crowd I was hanging out with, because some of the crowd I was hanging out with, older brothers were like drug dealers. Other adults would buy alcohol for teenagers, that kind of environment. So I didn't really need to be hanging out there.
Yeah, but it's interesting because your environment led you down a pathway to trying to be a light for others who are in that darkness. And,
Yeah.
you're as an addiction counselor, you had inside knowledge of what the underbelly looked like. And,
Mhm.
so I imagine that helped you somewhat.
It did. If anything, it gave me a level of compassion, um, in understanding where people can get started on that path, and for others, then the biological processes kick in. Other people can abuse and walk away. Others, that abuse moves into addiction for them, and then they're trapped. And it's a very terrible situation for them to be in. And they need compassionate people who understand them, but also um, understand what's required for recovery, and that they're responsible for recovery and have to be held accountable for that piece of it.
Yeah, I think in our industry, coaching, addiction counseling, all of that things, oftentimes the compassion gets cut out. Too many want to be a cookie cutter. Here's what you have to do, and they forget the human element and the compassion part of it.
Right.
So it's nice that you had that added piece. Death by Cubicle is now a bestseller.
Yes, it did make bestseller. Yep.
So you're now a best-selling author.
Yeah, actually, I'm now, as of recently, as of April 7th, I'm now a 2-time best-selling author. I,
Nice.
I
Well,
went ahead and did another book, completely unrelated to coaching. It was really more of advice for graduates
okay.
as they're graduating high school and college. Just had this inspiration one day to write another book. So actually,
Nice.
yeah, now 2-time.
That's awesome. Death by Cubicle, again, you was inspired by your own corporate burnout. Can you kind of expand on the points and the philosophies within the book that you've come to understand?
Yeah. When I realized, as I was burning out for the third or fourth time as it was, I realized that I couldn't leave the job that I had. It was just too good of a position. It was, with the pay and the benefits, I just couldn't be an idiot and just up and walk away. So I realized that something had to be different. So then I started to think about, well, what did I do during the days where I felt better versus the days that I didn't feel so good? And I started paying attention to those things, increasing my awareness. As time went on and I started improving my nutrition, I felt better, because the first thing that happens with burnout, that everybody typically notices, is exhaustion. Absolute exhaustion usually comes over us.
Mhm.
Um, from there, then we get into these cynical attitudes, um, and start thinking, well, nothing's ever going to change. This is ridiculous. We get that negative mindset going. And then the last phase of it, is where then that we can sit there all day long and we're working, but we no longer feel efficient and effective. That nothing that we do actually makes a difference anymore, has no meaning. So that gets into kind of that third and final phase, where if you've hit those three things, you're definitely in burnout. If you're ever wondering about that, those are your 3 check marks right there. And I realized what was happening. So I started to evaluate and what was different. And it occurred to me that maybe this time around, that I could actually help somebody else with this, because I've been through it more than once. And this time around, I could not quit my job. So I needed to find a way to get better for myself while maintaining that job. So as the time went on and I started paying attention and doing more positive things for myself and so forth, I captured all that in the book. And so again, coming from that addictions background, I approached it from a threefold philosophy of mind, body, and spirit.
Mhm.
So first thing about the body is that you got to address the exhaustion. And well, a lot of us get into really bad habits when we're in some vicious cycles, and we may be eating very poorly. We're not
Mhm.
sleeping well at night anyway because of stress, because we're not managing our stress, and around and around it goes. So then you use the energy drinks, you use the caffeine, you grab and go junk food. There were many days I was on the road traveling to go see some suppliers. So those were days that just felt frenzied and hectic, and I wasn't eating healthy, and I'd be so exhausted by the time I would return back into town. And so I realized, okay, first things first, I can't keep sitting here every day wanting just to crash on the floor. I've got to I got to stay awake here at work. This is ridiculous. So just on my own, I figured that was the first light bulb that went off for me, was fix your nutrition. So I started looking into some nutritional options for myself and changing the way I ate. And that really, I started to feel that difference. And so then as I could bring myself up out of the exhaustion with improving nutrition, started thinking about, well, I got to get better sleep. And get consistent with my sleep times and not be all over the place with that. And so again, each day I just physically started feeling better. Well, when you physically feel better, then you can start to put more thought into, okay, well, taking a look at your job and what's going on here, and how are my reactions to things
Mhm.
going on here in my job that's actually fueling the fire. How do I fuel my own burnout fire?
Yeah.
Then, and that I can't totally blame on the job, because it's my reaction to things. It's not the event itself. It's just my reaction. So then that's where the mental part of it, the challenging the way I was thinking about things. And again, practicing stress management, getting calmed down, because that makes a big difference. So I could
Mhm.
start to get into that the mental aspect of it, of the mind, body, and spirit recovery. But the last part was spirit. And that was taking time to, again, and this kind of, and a lot of these things you'll find that they'll overlap a little bit with each other. So with
Mhm.
that spiritual side of things, with meditating, for me, I'm a Christian, so a lot of praying, and just being quiet, not trying to make things happen, and just be like, he's in control, let go.
Yeah.
and and reminding myself is like, everywhere we go, there's a lesson to be learned. And what am I supposed to learn while I'm here? It's like, because I was getting frustrated at wanting different opportunities to come my way.
Mhm.
I wanted some magical thing to happen, and it
Right.
wasn't happening, and it still has not happened to necessarily that position yet. But that's okay, because now I'm in a better place, and I'm still there. I mean, all these years later, because the burnout started happening around like 2018. I joined the John Maxwell team in 2017, was gung ho, excited, because even at that point, I knew I needed something more in my life. So I was challenging myself with some personal growth and development, which
Mhm.
always is a good antidote to burnout. Personal growth and development, for sure. Seek that out.
Yeah.
But because then I was trying to then build a side business while working full time, I was starting to burn the candle at both ends, and I wasn't doing any of the self-care kind of things.
Mhm.
And so I was putting myself on my own path to burnout. It wasn't completely this corporate job that was doing it. Part of it, I was doing it to myself. And that's the lesson that I've learned, that having gone through it multiple times, that, because I realized what occurred to me one day was I looked at somebody who'd been on the job for many, many years, and, and they're still there, and they were happy. They were happy. I couldn't believe it. It's like, you have been here forever. How are you so happy? And
Yeah.
that's why I realized, like, oh, you know what? It's probably their mindset. That's
Yeah.
what's different.
Well, it's interesting because as JMTers, we were exposed to Paul Martinelli, who is, a
Mhm.
wonderful coach and business mind.
Yes.
But he reiterates incessantly, you can't be cohesive in one area of your life if another area of your life is in discourse. There's no way to compartmentalize happy, content, and a mess. Like, they bleed over, right?
Mhm.
So when you fix the one, it had to improve the other parts of your life as well,
Mhm.
correct?
Oh, that very much so. Because what would happen is that when I was in the height of burnout, I would come home and basically behave like a depressed person.
Hmm.
There would be events to go to, and I didn't want to go. I
Hmm.
didn't want to participate. I just wanted to go home and just sit down and just collapse. And so, and prior to that, long story short, I had completely rebuilt my life in 2014. My prior marriage ended after 23 years of marriage. And so I had to find me all over again. So really, from 2014 to 2017 were really exciting times, actually. Having come through some really dark times, those were good days. And then that's when I got brave and was like, I'm going to join the John Maxwell team. And then for the next year after that, then it's like, let's go for this. And but then by later 2018 or so, into early 2019, I was pushing myself to such an extent that I was actually creating my own burnout, in addition to the full-time job. And so, yeah, just I could look back and see, like, where I had been, and was so happy with the new life I'd created for myself. And then I wasn't doing that anymore. And it's like, I don't want to stay on the path that I'm on. This needs to
Hmm.
change. And so that was
So,
definitely a motivator.
a couple of things that come to mind. You wrote this book based on repeated experience in your business life. Did you find that there was a certain time frame to where it started to creep back in? Because I know when we ever go to a new job, we're always excited and great to be there. The only problem with that is usually the person who's leaving and miserable is the one training us. So then we get like that earful just to
Yeah.
start.
Yes.
Which is ironic to me. But that being said, usually we go in with like a happy attitude and feeling good. And then over time, yeah, the reason I can relate to this is because I'm not built for corporate. Like my wife has had, when she could work, she had one job for 25 years and I had 25 jobs in those 25 years. You know, we always joke
Yeah.
about, I'm just, but I worked a couple years and then I get bored and, move on, whatever. So did you find there was a certain time frame to where you started to actually feel the burnout over and over and over again?
I noticed a 3-year pattern for myself.
Yeah.
It was usually about 3 years in. And yeah, in the particular company that I'm still with now, when I first went there, I went there really out of desperation. It's not really what I wanted to do, but my life was upside down. And I was going through a divorce. I had been a stay-at-home mom for a little bit of time. I had a, prior professional background, but I had the benefit of being a stay-at-home mom for a few years. And so and my ex-husband controlled all the money. Everything was in his name. He had all the money. So I needed to, knowing where the things were headed, I was like, I need to hurry up and find a job because this is going to be bad if I don't. So I hurried up and I found a job, and I went into this one, which I had prior automotive experience with a Japanese automaker many, many years ago. So luckily it was experience I could fall back on. And so, how they talk about blessings in disguise. Just as a little side note, my ex-husband never saw the value in any of the work that I did, like the social services work that I did, nonprofit, which is where my heart really was all those years, but it was never good enough for him. So he forced me into jumping into the automotive industry because it had the kind of pay that he wanted me to have.
Yeah.
But in hindsight, thank goodness, because you know what, I needed to rely on that.
Yeah.
At this point in time, and to give me the kind of salary that I needed and the insurance and everything that I needed to have as a single person going forward. So never look back on anything thinking that everything was like necessarily a bad experience, or you'll never know when you might see it as a blessing in disguise one day.
Yeah. I
You may
find
find
that,
it.
yeah, I definitely find that when I'm in my dark, low season, obviously as Christians, we're not sitting there going, hey, thank you, God, for this wonderful darkness, right?
Yeah.
But we work our way out. We remain faithful and do our part and work our way out of it. And then we look back to where we are at that time and go, oh, that was a stepping stone. That was a building block. That was another plus in the column to get me to be better at where I'm at today. So I do have a degree in psychology. So and I've told this numerous times, there's a psychology joke, but the end of it basically has the two little girls, one, crying and bawling because she has everything nice and her tummy hurts from eating too much, and she's breaking all the toys, and she's miserable. So the psychologists basically go, well, what's the other girl at? Because they put her in a room just full of crap, and they're like, oh, the other little girl must be like miserable. So they walk into that little girl's room and she's happy, gleeful, throwing crap all over the place. And they're like, why are you so happy? And she's like, with all this crap, there's got to be a pony in here somewhere.
Yeah.
So I always tell people, look for your pony, because if
Yes.
you're in it, there's got to be a pony, right?
Exactly.
I look for your pony. I shortened that up so it's not as funny, but the point is the same.
Right.
In our darkness, you got to be looking for your pony, because that's the only way to work your way out.
Yeah, those silver linings. And and one of the things that I learned is, again, recovering from burnout, was gratitude. Because I remember there was this day about 2-3 years after my divorce, I was mowing the yard, and I was sick of working every weekend, doing yard work, laundry, housework. We were doing school projects, homework, and just cooking.
Yeah.
On top of a full-time job that, like I said, I never really had intended to go back into, but I was happy to have that salary. So, and it was the only opening at the time that, I was happy for that. But as I was about midway through that front yard, through one of the strips, all of a sudden it hit me. It's like, thinking about other single moms is like, how many single moms would give their right arm to have a yard for their kids to play in?
Mm-hmm.
And I told myself, suck it up. You stop being a big whiny baby about having to
Yeah.
mow a yard. You be grateful you got a yard. You
Right.
got a house and you've got a yard. So many single moms don't have that. They had to go to apartments,
Yeah.
and because they couldn't afford to have a house. And somehow going from having nothing in my name and really no money to my own, I had to rely on the ex-husband for that, to creating something for myself completely. Yeah, I was overwhelmed with gratitude. And you know what? I never once felt bad about mowing that yard ever again. In fact,
Can
every time
I,
I would start the mower, it would come back to me.
yeah, be thankful for
Yeah.
every bit of it. Can I venture to guess, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but I'd venture to guess that once you started stepping fully into that gratitude, the burnout became less,
It
and
did.
you probably were in alignment to find your second husband.
Yes. Well, actually, I was already dating him by that point,
Right.
but yes, again, having gratitude and the right mindset, again, it aligns you, it puts you in the frequency of the future you desire. If
Hmm.
you're mindful of that and pay attention to what frequency you're operating within. And so, yes, very much so. Um, and even, and at one point I even had applied for a new job. It was really more out of curiosity to see what would happen. And it was a phenomenal company, and it was down at the coast, live near the beach, very well-known company. And I was brave, and I thought, I'm just gonna throw my name in and see what happens. And sure enough, it went very quickly through interview process. I actually interviewed with the global person in France for this company to
Wow.
interview me. I got offered that job. Um, in putting it side by side with what I had already, I ended up declining it. One, it was a good experience to see what others had, because sometimes we can get stuck in the mindset that the grass is greener somewhere else,
Sure.
and we can make up that story, that narrative. And then when we actually go check it out, it's not as green as what you think it is.
Yeah.
But number two was that I felt better about me, that I saw value in myself once again, because this other company saw enough value in me to offer me a position. Like I said, it's a well-known, it's an impressive company. To this day, I'm a little bit shocked that they offered it to me. I was like, wow, but I ended up turning it down. So despite the burnout and having this other opportunity that was close enough, but not exactly what I wanted, I stayed where I was. And then my gratitude grew even more from that experience.
Yeah, it's I caution people about gratitude, only in the fact that it's easy to be grateful, like, okay, I got offered this job, right? And now they want me. So I'm grateful. But you had the gratitude before the job, and it's easy to be grateful when we're eating at the buffet. Gratitude is like thankful that you can even get to a buffet. Like
Right.
there's
Yes,
like the gratitude has to become part of the not from the result. And,
exactly.
it makes a big difference, because it's easy to be grateful when things are great, but to
Hmm.
have gratitude when you're in the midst of your struggle or the trials or whatever, that's when it's truly a blessing, because that's when our we lean into our faith, we trust a little more, and we're more obedient to what we're being asked to do. Even if we don't see the bigger picture, we can't understand why we're being asked for this, that, or why we're staying in our suffering for as long as we are. But that's when God's blessings come to us, because now we're obedient to what he wants us to do. And it takes the focus off of our ego and onto him, which is where he
Hmm.
wants it in the first place.
Exactly. In staying with that topic of gratitude and, reliance on, I realize everybody's got diverse beliefs, but, reliance on a God or higher power. Back at the time that I was going through my divorce, of course I had some really down days. So they were rough, but it occurred to me early on that I wanted to be better, not bitter. I have no idea where that thought even came to me. It was like 3 a.m. because I wasn't even sleeping at all back then. I maybe get an hour or two. I remember it was 3 a.m. or so. I was sitting on the couch, couldn't sleep, of course, all stirred up and stressed out. And, that's where it just came to me. And I'm assuming that it was a God message.
Yeah.
Be better, not bitter. And so in striving to be better, then that's when I started seeking out resources for myself. Um, Found a women's retreat that was specific to what was going on in my situation, and could find empowerment by being with other women who are walking the same path as me. Because not only was it divorce, but also dealing with infidelity, which is a huge issue for a lot of people, and a lot of deep hurts come with that. So I had to navigate that path as well. But that's what occurred to me at that time. And I'm so glad that I had the thought, because then as the days got dark, I then could tap into, again, that inner resource, that inner strength. Was that the narrative I created for myself was, I get a do-over. That was how I reframed my dark situation, is that I get a do-over. So I get to go do all the things that I wasn't allowed to do when I was married the first time. And I used to tell people, because of course you'd have to fill out forms. Are you, single, or you divorced, or new people would meet you and they'd ask you what your status was. And I would tell them I'm independently owned and operated.
I love
And
it.
I fully embraced that, and I loved it, because I lived into that new freedom, and being able to challenge myself and go do new things that I had never done before. And so I challenged myself, go build a new life, because you don't know who you are anymore. You've been with that person for so many years. You were so tied up in who they were and what we were together. It's like, I got to find me again. And so that's when I started a bucket list. And that's one of the things I actually encourage for the burnout recovery, is like, get excited about life again, go seek out joy, start a bucket list and start pursuing those activities, get up off that couch and go do something. I mean, yeah. And so that's where then, as I was doing that and getting excited about a whole new life, the joy was coming in, and the gratitude was coming in for all the new experiences.
Well, it's my wife and I, when we were in our really dark days with her health and my own burnout, whatever, we realized that we wanted to move from where we are. We didn't know where we wanted to go. We just knew we wanted to move. But her feeling at the time was, we can't afford to, right? And I said to her, we can be broke anywhere, but we can be broke and happy. Right?
Exactly. You must well be broken in a place you want to be.
Right. And once we changed the narrative of that, life started to get good again, and things improved, right? Again, finding that gratitude for whatever it was, right?
Yeah.
And so I think when you're in the middle of whatever that is, definitely seek the gratitude and lean into whatever your support system is, or your higher power, or your faith. But we don't know how strong we are until we have to be strong.
Right. Exactly. And that's where then you can, and especially if you've been through tough times, I would encourage this for the listeners. If you're in a dark time right now, just know that there's going to be the day that you're going to get to, you're going to look back and be like, wow, look what I did. I'm so proud of myself. So I hope that they grab onto that idea, because that day's coming. It's going to arrive, and you're going to be there, and you're going to look back and be like, I did it. I made it through. And it's like the old saying goes, if you have to go through it, you might as well grow through it.
Right. Absolutely.
So yeah.
And it's I've found in the darkness that I've faced, nothing changed until I decided it was time to change. Because I could bitch and moan, and I could stay there, and I could remain uncomfortable. But as soon as I put my back up against the wall and gave myself no other options, then the direction of my life started to change again, because I made that decision. This is the line. Now I'm moving forward.
Yep, exactly. It's again, that decision, that pivotal moment where you make that choice. Yeah.
So what is on the horizon for Kelly?
What I'm going to do is I'm in the process of preparing a corporate program that I can take into companies to help them to prevent burnout in the corporations and stop the quiet quitting, because they don't realize why they have this constant turnover. They think it's for many other reasons. The burnout aspect is being overlooked. And so I have a corporate program that I'm putting together that can help them to invest more in their employees and value them more.
Well, I think it's also a mentality of the corporations to stop cutting back the number of employees and expecting those remaining to do all the work required for those numbers.
Exactly.
My son, my wife and I's son, he went to school to be a chef. He graduated, went out and worked in some really high-end restaurants. And after 2 or 3 years, he doesn't even want to cook again anymore because they let everybody go. And the people who were there now have to do 3 times the work for the same pay that they're getting at McDonald's. So it's like,
Yeah.
but I see that, or saw that when I was in corporate America over and over and over again. You dwindle the workforce, but double the workload.
Mm-hmm.
And then you wonder why you have unhappy employees.
Exactly. And what's amazing about my recovery from burnout is that it took place right as COVID was hitting.
Mm.
And so I had to keep navigating supply chain. We were down staff and had to keep navigating all the challenges of supply chain and not slip back into burnout. So I
Yeah.
guess in a lot of ways, that was a good test for my book and in my theories of how to recover, because I'm still there now. I'm
And how
okay. And
long
I'm
was
there.
it from burnout till now? How long, like
It's,
when you were about to quit till
mhm.
now, how much time has passed?
It's going on 3.5, 4 years.
Which is great because that was
Yeah.
your record for recycled burnout. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I've made it past that typical 3-year mark. And I'm actually approaching my 10-year anniversary with this company.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
patterns are broken.
There you go. Well, if you, other than the gratitude and finding the joy, what's the number one tip in your book that helps others who are in their own burnout? Because burnout isn't just corporate. I mean, I know your
Mhm.
book is Death by Cubicle and it
Mhm.
focuses around corporate, but we all experience it in
Mhm.
marriage, relationships, entrepreneurship, general life, right? But I think
Exactly.
having read your book, I think there's an underlying theme that can be applied, not just to corporate.
Exactly. Yeah. And really in Death by Cubicle, it's just really a metaphor
Yeah.
because burnout takes place in so many different environments and different situations. And so really the number one takeaway is that you have to be willing to admit you are in burnout, and you have to be willing to actually do self-care. And the self-care is the mind, body, spirit recovery. Because if you're not committed to your recovery, you're not going to do the things that are outlined in that book. You're never going to
Mhm.
do them. You have to make really the commitments to yourself. I mean, are you worth it? Or do you want to keep suffering? I mean,
Yeah.
it's your choice. Again, your back's against the wall. What choice are you going to make?
Yeah. I had a coach once tell me, because I've made some ill-advised business choices. um, and that's cautioned me on making secondary business choices. And the coach asked me, you've already paid for that mistake once. How long are you going to let it keep being something you pay for? And that changed my mindset on coaching in general. And now, 4 years later, I'm living what I want to live, which is speaker, trainer, and coach. And,
Mhm.
had I still had that mentality of, oh, I've made these mistakes and I've been burned out and burned and I'm not going to do it again, I would never be living the life that I'm currently living. So I think it's exactly into what you said, though.
Yeah. Well, in as coaches, I think being transparent about our downtimes and the lessons we learn from it, and how again how we've learned not to keep paying that price over and over. And again, go move forward, like John Maxwell was that, fail forward. Fail
Right.
fast, fail often, fail forward.
Right.
It's okay, because every time we fail, we're one step closer to success. So failures aren't, I mean, society tells us that failures are just a horrible thing to have happen. They're not. It's just, it's one way that you've learned, don't do it this way. That's all
Right.
it really means. We assign too much meaning to it.
Well, and I've also gotten old enough down the road to realize that I don't have to fail myself every time. I can learn from other people too. It's like
Exactly.
take
Yes.
where I don't have to try everything myself. Right.
Right. Yes. That's the great thing about having the mentors and other coaches, and coaches need coaches because we can learn from others and
Yeah.
to, yeah, not do everything the hard way.
Right. Yeah. Some lessons can come via somebody else. So
Yeah.
I thoroughly enjoyed your book. I will put a link so people can know how to reach out and grab it.
Oh, thank you.
Uh, we'll make sure that, that's something that they can do so we can help as many people as possible. As we kind of tie this up, first off, thank you so much for joining me. You're truly a light in a corporate world that needs to be lit and stay lit. I'm glad that you're finding out who Kelly is again, and the smile is brighter and the eyes are sparklier, and you just keep going down that path. But as I ask everyone, who's in my tribe, a warrior spirit, what does a warrior spirit mean to Kelly Owens?
I think the warrior spirit is trust trust your inner strength. There's more than you realize. And in the warrior spirit is not about just barging into things with, a hatchet in your hand.
Yeah.
It's sometimes it's that quiet path, but it's
Mhm.
that inner resolve. You know where you're going, and you're not going to let anybody detour you from where you're headed. And to me, that's a warrior spirit. You know what your truth is. You live your truth. You defend your truth. You protect it. And when I say defend, I'm not saying you have to defend yourself to anybody else. In fact, I'm a big believer in I don't have to explain myself to anybody.
Mhm.
Because I used to have to do that in younger years, and I will not do that now. If I know my truth and I know my path and I'm following it, whether you have a problem with it or not, it's not my problem.
Yeah.
And that's my version of that inner warrior spirit.
I love that. I heard decades ago, don't believe everything you think, and it's not my business what you think of me.
Mhm.
So
Yes. Yep.
I've kind of adopted those as well, and they definitely serve, because then you can show up authentic. You don't have to be chameleon and be this
Mhm.
for that and this for that. And then you do truly lose who you are and what you're about, right?
Mhm.
So I appreciate that you feel that way about it. Um, Thank you for being a part of this tribe, and thank you for being the light. And we look forward to seeing future successes from you.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate you inviting me on here today. I've really enjoyed this.
Yeah, it's been fun. Thank you so much. You have a blessed night.
Thank you. You too.
Bye.
Bye.